Did you know there was a small American church where every registered member died within the same year? Each death officially ruled natural, yet no two causes were the same? The church sat just outside a fading Midwestern town, the kind of place that barely appeared on highway signs. Built in the early 1940s, it was modest, white-painted wood with no steeple and no cemetery beside it. Locals said that was intentional. The founding pastor believed burial grounds anchored sorrow too close to prayer. For decades, nothing about the church stood out. Attendance was small but devoted. Farmers, teachers, a town clerk, a retired nurse, ordinary people with predictable lives. That's what made the first death so easy to ignore. In January of that year, the pastor collapsed during morning prayer. The coroner listed heart failure. He was 63. No history of illness, but stress was blamed. The congregation mourned and carried on. 2 weeks later, the church treasurer died in her sleep. A brain aneurysm, sudden and painless. In March, a middle-aged couple, both longtime members, were killed in separate incidents. One a single-car accident on a dry road, the other from a rare allergic reaction to medication she'd taken for years. By summer, the deaths were no longer whispers. 8 members gone, then 12, then 15. What unsettled the town wasn't just the frequency, it was the timing. Each death followed a church gathering within days. Prayer meetings, quiet Sunday services. No outbreaks, no shared meals. No obvious connection. County officials briefly considered coincidence. But a junior clerk in the health department noticed something strange while filing death certificates. Every deceased member had attended a private church meeting held the previous fall, a meeting not listed in public schedules. When asked about it, the remaining members gave the same vague answer. It was a special service. Closed-door, no recordings, no notes. By October, only 3 members were still alive. And one of them was starting to believe survival wasn't accidental. The last surviving members didn't leave town. They didn't call reporters, they didn't go to the police. Instead, they stopped answering their phones and locked the church doors from the inside. One of them was a woman named Margaret Hale, a former school librarian who had joined the church in the 1970s. She began writing letters to her sister, to a local historian, even to the state archives. None of them were sent. Margaret had started seeing patterns the officials ignored. She realized that the special service the previous fall had been introduced by a guest speaker. A man who wasn't from the town. A man whose name didn't appear in any church records before or after that night. She remembered his voice clearly. Calm, measured, almost instructional. He spoke about burdened years and release without violence. He quoted scripture, but out of order, rearranged, as if building something new from familiar words. After that service, several members reported feeling lighter, clear-headed, as if something heavy had been quietly lifted. Then the deaths began. Margaret visited the county office herself. She requested the death records of her friends. The clerk hesitated, then handed them over. Margaret noticed something chilling. Though the causes differed, the time of death was nearly identical in every case, between 2 and 3 a.m. When she brought this up, she was told it was meaningless. Bodies shut down at night. Patterns emerge where people want them. That same week, the second-to-last member died. A quiet man found seated upright in his living room chair, eyes open, no sign of struggle. Cause of death, sudden cardiac arrhythmia. Margaret was now alone. She began searching the church basement, somewhere she had rarely gone. Behind old hymnals and rotting boxes, she found a locked cabinet. Inside were cassette tapes labeled only with dates, everyone corresponding to a private church meeting. She played the final tape. The guest speaker's voice filled the room again, unchanged by time. He spoke about obedience not as faith, but as preparation, about bodies as temporary contracts, about the idea that death didn't have to be violent, it could be scheduled. The tape clicked off abruptly. Margaret never made it to the authorities with what she found, because 3 days later, she received a letter postmarked from her own town with no return address. Inside was a single line typed neatly. You attended. You agreed the year is almost complete. Margaret died in November. She was found in her bed, hands folded, face calm. The coroner listed respiratory failure. No toxins, no injuries, no sign of distress. With her death, the church officially had no members left. The building was shuttered, utilities cut, records boxed and archived. The story faded, replaced by newer headlines, easier tragedies. The town moved on. But years later, a journalist researching abandoned churches filed a public records request. What he received was thin, too thin. Attendance logs stopped abruptly the year before the deaths. Financial records were incomplete. And the guest speaker, his name appeared nowhere in state or federal databases. One detail lingered. The tapes Margaret had found were never logged into evidence. No one could say where they went. No one could confirm they ever existed. Today, the church still stands, though no one maintains it. Locals say the building feels wrong at night, as if it's still waiting for something. Power tools malfunction inside, watches stop, phones lose signal. And once a year, in the early hours between 2 and 3 a.m., the town's emergency dispatch system registers a brief, unexplained open line from the church's old landline, disconnected decades ago. No voice speaks, no message is left. Just the sound of something breathing, slowly, patiently, as if counting time that was promised long ago and still believes it will be kept.